Welcome back. We're talking about bike safety. In our last session, we talked about bike setup, and I left off talking about how you want to set your bike up before you go for a ride. A couple things you want to make sure you bring with you on your ride. A couple of essential items. Hopefully, you're not going to have a flat, but if you ride long enough and far enough, eventually it's going to happen, and you want to be prepared for that if it does. A couple of essential things to carry. Of course, a spare tube is one of the essential things you're going to want to carry with you. A tire wrench, preferably plastic. Metal works fine, but metal does have a tendency to pop the tube. So you can pick up a plastic wrench for under $2 at your local bike shop. A little lighter, a little easier to carry, and less propensity to actually pop the tube itself. These are kind of nice to have. They're not essential, but it's a CO2 tool used to fill up your tube. It comes with a CO2 cartridge. You simply pop it inside the actual device itself, and then go and secure it onto your Presta valve. Press down, and it'll inflate the tube up to about 100 to 110 psi, so you'd be set to ride home. Okay, so talking about bike safety, you've got everything you need to bike safely, and we're going out on the road. And what I'd like to talk about today is drafting versus non-drafting. If you ride with the group long enough, eventually you're probably going to ride in a draft line. Which is a great thing to do because you'll go a lot faster over the long haul. You'll save energy, and it's fun. It's just a fun way to actually ride. A couple things about drafting. You won't probably do it in a race, but again, it's a good training device, a good training technique. One thing about drafting is the idea is that you're going to form a line of 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 people in a draft line. And what this essentially means is you have, in this case, I'll use my hands as the bicycles. You'll have one person in front, one person in the back. The person in back is drafting the person in front's back tire with their front tire. And what that essentially means is you're within a couple of feet of that back tire. And what that creates is a bit of a break in the airflow, and you're in a bit of a pocket. So they're actually breaking the wind resistance for you as you ride, making the ride easier for you. Now, of course, all is fair in drafting. Eventually, you've got to take your turn in the front. So what this entails is this person is going to drop back, and you're going to pull out in front of them, and you're going to switch places, and you'll ride for a certain period of time. So in the end, what you're going to have is you'll be sort of rotating in and out of this air pocket. In some cases, breaking the air resistance, and in some cases, actually taking advantage of that person who's riding in front of you. First thing to bear in mind when you draft, don't get too close to the person's tire in back of you, but don't get too far behind. If you find yourself getting back 2 or 3 bike lengths, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that air pocket. It's within a couple feet of their back tire. So you want to stay close to them, but you don't want to get so close, of course, that you're actually bumping the back of their tire, which is not fun and can certainly cause an accident also. The other thing you want to bear in mind is, although in some cases you'll find drafting where you can pull up alongside the person in front of you's back tire, it's probably not a good idea. In some cases, for the folks who are experienced in drafting, we'll do this to when the wind shifts direction to help cut the wind resistance. Frankly, it's not a good idea to do it, and I would suggest just forming a straight tire-on-tire draft line instead of tire parallel to tire. So you want to stay a couple feet in back of that tire. Do not let yourself drift too far in either direction, either side of the person in front of you's tire, because obviously if they happen to move either direction and your front tire is parallel to their back tire, you can have an accident go over, causing both you and that person to go down, if not the entire draft line. So you're riding along your draft line, cruising, and the person decides to drop back and let you move to the front of the draft line. What they're going to do is they're going to move over to their left and drop back. They're going to reduce in speed, and in this case drop either in back of you if it's just the 2 of you, or all the way back into the back of the draft line if it's 3 or 4, 10 people. You'll pull up, accelerate, and get into a pace that you have established possibly with the group or with the other person, and you'll ride on. Another thing to bear in mind when you're riding a draft line, you're going to be focused on the person's tire in front of you. That means you're not necessarily going to be able to see what's coming on the road. And when I say what's coming, I mean what's on the road itself. You're paying attention to that tire because you want to make sure you're not getting too close or too far back. The person in front of you is going to give indications to what's in the road. So if they're riding along on the shoulder and they see, let's say, roadkill or a glass bottle or broken glass, they're going to either throw their hands down like this, so one hand down to the left to where that object or debris is. In some cases they might snap, just to give an idea that something's coming. You want to pay attention to what's coming up there, and it could come up pretty quick. Once their hand comes down with a pointing motion or a snap and a point, you want to look towards where that object or debris might be, and then take action to avoid running through it. Another thing to bear in mind, if a person is in the back of the draft line, it says car back, that means the car is coming from behind you, it's coming up, just to make the person in front of you or the persons in front of you aware that you've got a car coming up from behind you. That's kind of essential, particularly if you have someone who's driving really quickly, or maybe someone who isn't paying very close attention to the cyclist. That's the responsibility of the person at the back of the draft line. And you kind of want to pay attention because you're sort of the eyes for the group on the back. That's kind of draft line basics 101. It's a great technique to enable you to ride longer and to ride with more endurance. And it's also a lot of fun because you can increase your speeds pretty quickly. But you do want to bear in mind that there are some safety issues involved there. If you employ the tactics we just talked about, you should have a safe and efficient ride.